Alaikum. Welcome to the Islamic Study of North America's convention that is taking place virtually. With us today, we have Farouk Kathwari, Chairman and CEO of Ethan Allen, an American pioneer, a frontiersman himself who has been able to accomplish the American dream while also upholding our American Muslim principles and values that we share not just as a culture but as our faith. And with that, Mr. Farouk Kathwari.
Well, assalamu alaikum, and it is good to be on this program, and I know it's a virtual program, but we are all today doing things virtually, so I want to wish all the best to this convention and glad to give some brief perspectives.
So, Farouk, you have an amazing, amazing history. And for those of us who have not been able to see it, Farouk Kathwari recently wrote a book. It is called The Trailblazer. And Farouk, I would like for you to discuss and talk about, your life story, your childhood from, coming to the U.S., but also being born and raised in a heartland of the American Muslim community, which is Kashmir. So please do inspire us.
Well, it is a journey that I'm extremely proud of. It has given me a great opportunity. I was born in this region called Kashmir, which on one hand has beautiful mountains, great valleys, but also was impacted and has been impacted by politics, divisions, and wars. So I grew up in that area. I grew up with a family that was involved with politics. It was involved with arts and crafts, and my family were involved. Some of them were, my grandfather was detained. So we saw all of those things. So growing up in that area and in that region, I was fortunate in the sense that I focused a lot of my attention initially on sports. And those of you who know cricket, I was always playing cricket, other sports, and became captain of the cricket team in college, in the university, played in many different tournaments. And the cricket taught me the issues of leadership, of how to motivate people, that a leader has to play with the team, to be part of the team, to lead the team. So those were my early beginnings. And I also, like many, many young students of that time, got involved with politics. That sort of led me to come to America. It was an American journalist who I met in a plane coming from Delhi to Kashmir, and he was sitting next to me. I didn't know he was a journalist, and I asked him, why is he going to Kashmir? There was a lot of trouble at that time. He said, I want to cover it. I said, who's going to take you around? I must have been 17 or so. He said, I don't know. I said, I will. Well, I did take him for 6 days, got me into a lot of trouble, later on I got detained. He gave my name to an American diplomat who was coming in. The journalist's name was Richard Critchfield. The diplomat was Howard Schaefer. I took him around too. I introduced him in the university as an American in academics, a teacher, but he worked for the State Department. Anyway, long story. He also helped me come to America at age 20. I left these beautiful mountains of Kashmir and landed in beautiful Brooklyn, and ended up going to New York University at night and had to work during the days. So I got a job working as a bookkeeper in an area called Canal Street, and also started, just by accident, a business of getting some Kashmiri arts and crafts. So here I was in arts and crafts, and of course, also involved with looking at the future of Kashmir, participating in those things, and going to school at night, working during the days, and then I did an MBA at NYU. And while I was at school, I was given an opportunity to join a company on Wall Street. Those days, not many people from South Asia certainly were on Wall Street. So I was one of the few ones. And I was doing business. I was still at school. And a few years back, I became the chief financial officer of the Rothschild Company. And also my business led to my association with Ethan Allen. Then that's how the next part of the journey started.
Fantastic. So I want to go back a little bit. I know that you have a history with Islamic Society of North America, ISNA's president, Dr. Said. Since you touched on Kashmir in your education, what is the background there?
Well, the background is really Dr. Said was a teacher. He comes from an area called Sopor, which is one of the towns, and I came from a town called Srinagar, which is the capital of Kashmir. And he actually was a teacher also in my college. I don't think I directly, he ever taught me, but of course, he has been a great teacher. Our association started that way. And then I've had an opportunity of working with him. In fact, I also was on the board of an organization called World Religions of Peace. And he was on it too. So we spent time, we traveled together. We were actually invited by the Pope once at the Vatican. We were invited in Istanbul. We went to Tokyo, all the different religions of the world. So I've had an opportunity of sort of wearing many hats, from religious organizations to business organizations. Yeah, so Dr. Said, then finally, in fact, recently, he, as the president of ISNA, and I think Iftikhar, you were involved in meeting at that time Bob Silverman to establish what we call the Muslim Jewish Advisory Council. It's a very important initiative where the Muslim organizations like ISNA and American Jewish Committee got together to establish this advisory council, co-chaired by myself and Stanley Bergman, who was actually a former president of AJC and also a very, very major business leader.
Fantastic. I mean, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us world is a small place, and it's amazing that in the United States, you were able to be reconnected with your teacher, who happens to be our president for this organization. And
yes.
It's just a beautiful narrative nonetheless. So the purpose, actually, the main topic and the fundamental of this entire panel is talking about, business, talking about how American Muslims who are starting businesses, et cetera, who are getting ready to get into the economics of the United States. You have had a amazing career path launch that we just heard, going from Rothschild to Ethan Allen, finding that avenue. But you also lived that American dream of being a bookkeeper, starting from rolling your sleeves and starting it. I would like for you to discuss, the merchant in the making. Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, as we know, himself was a merchant. So I would like to have you kind of inspire us, give us that narrative that you've had, how your Islamic principles have guided you and shaped you in your business.
Yes, I think very important issue, very important opportunity. When I was working as a bookkeeper, I got involved with selling some Kashmiri arts and crafts. My family sent me. Then I was introduced to the founder of Ethan Allen. There were two founders. They were both Jewish, impacted by the Holocaust, and in 1932 had gone to Vermont to establish Ethan Allen, one of the most iconic American companies, founded by two Jewish entrepreneurs impacted by the Holocaust. So I met Nad Ansel, was the founder, very, very well known. And anyway, I started doing some business, and finally, after a few years, he said, I wanted to join the company. I said, well, how about a partnership? He looked at me, smiled, and again, did agree to a partnership. And then a few years later, this partnership was to develop products as a joint venture with Ethan Allen. A few years later, he said, I want you to come and join the company. Now, keep in mind, I am still in my 30s, and Ethan Allen had at that time, they had, 30 or 40 vice presidents, a big enterprise. So I said, and he wanted me to join the company and work with him. And I said, what would I do? You've got so many others. So he asked me, he said, what would you like to do? I said, if you want me to come, then I'll have to take your job. He smiled, but anyway, I did take his job. And this is great, amazing that this person here, somebody named Farouk, was given the responsibility of being the head of one of the most iconic American companies. Now my next challenge was to take it to the next level. And I realized that one of the most important responsibilities of the leadership is to help make sure that the people follow certain principles. Now, around that time or before that, I was lucky to have read a letter, a very famous letter. In fact, I have a small booklet by Hazrat Ali to Governor Malik, designate of Egypt. And he says to him, you are going to go to Egypt, but understand what your responsibilities. The main job of a leader is to help the people become better. Your job is there not to take the most and give the least, but help the people. And when you establish your leaders, make sure you get the people who are the best. Pay them well so they don't become corrupt. It goes on and on. It's an amazing letter. These are the principles. And then go back. Prophet Muhammad was not only not only our prophet, he established a precedent. He married his boss, a woman. He established a precedent of women should be treated. We have in some countries, we've gone far away from that. So those were the principles that I was able to comprehend. And then I established, right about 35 years back, I said, I'm going to establish principles. So Hazrat Ali and Prophet Muhammad were a great inspiration. I established 10 leadership principles. And then I published them. And for the last 35 years, those principles are the ones that are the backbone of our enterprise. And one of the most important of that is justice. You know, people don't talk of justice. Justice is critical. Motivated people do wonders. So I think those principles really have helped me in all these years in establishing an enterprise. And keep in mind, we're a public company. I've taken this company, it was public to private to public again. I've gone through many, but those principles have been foremost that has helped us to where we are.
And that is a fantastic, fantastic journey. And I think that kind of highlights for many of us of, you know, putting our faith into action. And we can see that through you, through your leadership in the company. As we wrap up, I would love for you to give us a closing remark, talk about how, you know, kids, youths who are in college, who are in high school, or those who are, you know, brand new business owners, what are some suggestions and highlights you would give them if they were looking for some principal guidance from an individual like you who has not just had an amazing journey of coming to the U.S. as an immigrant, but also, you know, achieving what all of us want to achieve, which is the American dream?
Well, you know, when I came, as I said, my first job was bookkeeper. I had never seen a calculator in my life. I'd never seen books. So I went in there into two small little printing company near Canal Street downtown, and Richard King and Jesse Isaacson, again, two entrepreneurs. So he opened up a book and a calculator. He said, and actually before that, I asked my class fellow, I said, what does a bookkeeper do? I never heard the word. They said, don't apply. I said, I will. So it's important to go and try. So I did. He opened the book and he said, would you foot it? Well, I never heard that word before. I thought he wanted me to kick it or something. But anyway, I learned and I got the job. So, but then when you get a job, you have to work hard. It doesn't matter what you do. Earlier today, before this interview, I was helping one of my associates, my persons who work here, we were cleaning the garden. I love to work outside. I love to work with my associates. When you do that, people work twice as hard, 10 times as hard. So as a leader, whether you're a leader or whether you're any job you have to do it with passion for yourself. When you do that, great things happen.
Fantastic. Well,
other thing I would just say is, of course, you're having this convention. I would like to congratulate all of you. ISNA, I've known ISNA for many years. As you know, I've been involved with, fortunately, I've chaired the National Retail Federation, which is the largest federation of retail. I've chaired the American Home Furnishings Association. Then on the other hand, I've chaired Refugees International. I'm on the advisory board of the New York Stock Exchange. You talk of business, you have to do both. That's what I'm getting at. So when you do those both things, then things happen. And for me, ISNA has been very important with the work that has been done. And your leadership, I would like to wish you all the best, and especially this convention is a unique way of doing it. But today, we are learning. And it is also a learning process. And I am I'm certain that that this will be done well.
No. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for those inspiring words to the community, to every individual in our American Muslim community, as well as to the members such as Dr. Saeed Bashar Salim, our new CEO. We really do appreciate your time, and we thank you for being part of the ISNA convention.
All the best, and Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the ISNA convention with Brother Anwar Khan of Islamic Relief. He is the president. He has served as CEO. He has served as a volunteer. He has served in numerous roles with the organization. He's also been a volunteer advisor to several administrations, current administration as well, talking to them about the humanitarian efforts. He is keeping us at the table, making sure we are represented and our voices are heard properly and adequately. This individual has been an inspiration for us, putting faith into action. And with that, Brother Anwar Khan.
Assalamu alaikum. May peace and blessings be on you and everybody watching this video.
So the purpose of this panel, as we've had Farouk Katwari earlier from Ethan Allen, now we have Brother Anwar, which is actually on the nonprofit side, Islamic Relief USA. What we would like to discuss with you is how has the American economical community, how has the American society, how has its laissez-faire free market components been a addition, and in sometimes how has that been also a good thing to allow Islamic Relief, which is a very, very new organization compared to the things that we see, but it has succeeded and catapulted so quickly, starting in 1993. So Brother Anwar, I would love for you to give us some inspiration. The community who will be watching this is the ISNA community, but particularly people who are starting new businesses, new nonprofits, also individuals who are what we would consider youth, high schoolers, college students who are getting ready to, start their own endeavors.
The work that we do is social enterprise. This is the compassionate side of business. Within Islam, from the beginning, we encouraged business. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a businessman, but at the same time, we encourage compassion and to help the needy. So in Islam, we don't want people to have to ask for help, but if they do ask for help, then we need to help them. The reason is we want everyone to have their own dignity and be sustainable. And if we do help them, we need to do it in a dignified manner. So when Islamic Relief came to America in 1993, it was already working in other countries before it came here. It was already doing amazing work in Eastern Europe, in the Balkans with the war over there. In Africa, it had already received funding from the British government for its work in Sudan. It had already received UN support for projects around the world. But when we came to America, our focus here was that there was a lot of money, a lot of potential in the Muslim community to support social enterprise. And our focus initially, Ifti, was overseas. Then we realized that it is important to help here in America with our neighbors as well. One is not a true believer. One is not a believer if one's neighbor is hungry. So for us, it was very, very important that we address hunger issues. Later on, we decided to address other issues as well. One of the projects that I loved that we did a few years ago was in downtown Baltimore, which is in a very needy inner city area, to give a grant to help them to build robotics. So you have these young kids that can dream that they can become engineers. And people don't realize there's a huge amount of income in America and wealth but there's also hunger issues and poverty. It depends which part of the country you're in and which part of the state one is in. To us, we want to lift everybody up. And to us, this is an Islamic principle. This is, I believe, also a principle in other faiths. And this is a very American thing. So for us, we want the American dream for everyone, not just for a few, but for everyone. So to us, it's very important to make money and to take care of yourself. And that's your right, but it's your obligation to help your neighbor too.
So I know that Islam is in your name of your organization, but how has some of the Islamic principles that you guys have put into action in your everyday setting, not just dealing with employees, but dealing with volunteers, dealing with people of different faiths? I would love for you to speak more onto that.
I remember years ago, people coming up to me and saying, thank you so much for the work you do in Islamic relief. And I thought they meant about the humanitarian work we do, the food we give and the medical aid and stuff like that. They said, you have shown us how professional Muslim organizations can be. There's a feeling that if you're professional, you go in the profit sector. And if you're unprofessional, you go in the non-profit sector. And what they felt was that Islamic Relief was an example of a professional Muslim organization that was a success story. I came to America with 200 pounds in my pocket. Okay? I came and I started. And when I came over here, I think initially I was on about $18,000, which I didn't realize was not enough money in Los Angeles. Okay, so I was in the barrio in San Fernando Valley, not realizing I should have done better research before I came over here. And I didn't realize that I myself was in a situation where I needed help. Now, we started from a $0 organization to now an organization which is expected to raise $100 to $110 million cash from America this year. Last year, we raised 80 million. So far this year, with COVID-19 and all of the problems we have surpassed that number of what we did in 12 months. We surpassed it in 7 months and 7 days, mashallah, of this year. Now, before you say, oh, that's great, not really, because the need has gone much more than the increase that we've received. So at the same time, when people expected our donations to go down, that's what the textbooks will tell you. That's what the lectures will tell you. They actually went up. Why? Barakah, blessings. So the work we do gives confidence, number one, to young Muslims and the Muslim community that we can be successful, that we can be professional. So it gives them some pride in their community. Number two, often we see on TV people showing crazy people doing crazy stuff in the name of Islam. Every community has its crazies. Ours are very popular with the media. But you know what we don't see, Ifti? The work we do out of love and compassion. Whether that be Muslims, whether that be Jews, whether that be Christians, we don't see this work done. Often when we talk about faith, people accentuate the crazies and the negative. They don't talk about the wonderful work different communities do. Whether that be their Sikh community or others, we need to have a better, in my opinion, representation of good stories. But that's the problem generally with the media. You know, if it bleeds, it leads. So for us, what if it smiles and it's not bleeding? What if it's spreading love? What if it's spreading joy? That is the work that we do. So I believe that we bring hope. We bring hope. We bring pride of community. We bring hope that we can be in a better world. And we build bridges. I remember when I was in Houston, 2005, just after Hurricane Katrina. And there was a different interfaith effort. Now, normally when these interfaith efforts come, I was a little bit reserved because I felt that it wasn't directly in our stream of what we do. Our aim is humanitarian work, and I didn't just want a kumbaya moment where we come together, we say we sing a song of unity and we walk off and there's no change in behavior. To me, the real interfaith work is multi-faith, when we bring the best of our faith together and we come up with something beautiful. And I believe God is happy when we work together. So I remember a rabbi came up to one of our volunteers and said, you know, you're feeding people on one day in the convention center who are internally displaced persons from Louisiana. We're doing it another day. Why don't the young Muslims and the young Jews come together to feed together? So we were paying for the feeding program, and one day they were paying for another. They said, why don't we do a joint day? I love that project, Ifti. And now we are working together. You're going to love this. To me, it's an Abrahamic project. It's Hayas, Hebrew Immigration Aid Service, the over 100-year-old refugee service in America that's also working to help refugees around the world. They're working in Lesvos, Greece, doing a project that is funded by Islamic Relief, the Muslim organization, Muslims and Jews, and with a Christian law firm. So it sounds like a joke. What would you do if you had a Muslim, Jew, and a Christian go to the tourist resort of Lesvos, Greece? You know what we're doing? We're giving hope. We're helping people with legal aid together so that we can help them to be able to get out of there through legal means. And that's very important. So here you have Muslims, Jews, and Christians. Each one of us could do something beautiful, but together we can do something even more beautiful. That's just one example. Another example I remember that I'm quite happy about is when we funded Catholic Relief Services to do a project with the Serbian Orthodox Church a few years ago to help Syrian refugees in Serbia on their way to other parts of Europe. And I remember somebody coming and saying to me, Anwar, I don't think the Muslim community would be happy that we're working with the Serbian Orthodox Church because of the war in Bosnia about 20 odd years ago, they told me. I said, you mean that war that I went there when they were shooting at me? That war? I know very well what happened. I was there and I saw the destruction. You mean that war where there were those mass graves that I prayed at? People are trying to teach me about what I saw firsthand. But they're trying to teach me about hate, whereas I see that as a story of what happens when we don't work together. So to me, the fact that the Catholics, Muslims, and Orthodox were working together in Serbia to help Syrian refugees, who were majority Muslim, but some Christians too, yeah? To help them on their way was to me a very, very important project. And I would rather be doing that kind of work than be helping people who are the victims of ethnic cleansing, because this helps people to prevent their ethnic cleansing. We will help people if they are victims for sure, but isn't it better if the people don't become victims? So social cohesion is one of the things that we are doing through our work. Now, normally when people think of Islamic relief, you think of giving food to the hungry overseas. You don't realize we're doing social cohesion projects here in America and around the world. We are here to break down walls in our hearts and build bridges. And if I have my way, it won't be bridges, it'll be freeways through to people's hearts.
So as we wrap up, I mean, that is just inspirational and amazing to hear. What would be some words of wise that you would give to individuals who are watching this panel as they get ready to start either their business or they're struggling in their current nonprofit? What are some words of wisdom, and how has the Islamic Society of North America given that opportunity to allow people to come together in a convention like this? I know this is an unorthodox convention for all of us, where we are meeting virtually rather than in person, because in person they would be able to come up to you, talk to you, and ask you for your advice firsthand.
Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a mercy unto mankind. Whenever we start anything, we say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of Allah, most merciful, most beneficent. If we are running businesses, we need to also put some money aside as mercy, as love. Now, zakah is not your donation, that's your obligation. One needs to calculate one's zakah when one is doing a business or one's own money. The actual donation is your sadaqah. The way the American system is set up, the tax laws are set up, it is to benefit people who give in donations. So I would really encourage people that when you make as much money as you can, but purify it by giving your zakah, and bring barakah to it by giving sadaqah. And that will not take away from your family. That will bless your family, inshallah. Now, how much you decide, but you got to give some. It's up to you. For sadaqah and zakah, you don't have a choice. Give it. And if you're giving it, give it to a really good project. You know, what pains me is people do so much effort in buying their car. They do so much effort in buying the Xbox or whatever they're buying, or different TV. And sometimes they do no effort in donating. Do some effort when you donate. Look into the different organizations, find one that you trust, and then support it wholeheartedly. As far as my colleagues who are in different nonprofits, do not despair. There is hope, inshallah. You are doing it for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you succeed, you succeed. Even if you fail, you will be rewarded for your intention. Our job is to do our best. We don't save any lives, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does. As Malcolm X said, if anything good happens, it's from God, and the mistakes are mine. We need to really understand that, and we need to understand that we need to pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings barakah, that the angels are helping us in the work that we're doing, and that we can show people what the real Islam is. Not the horrific stuff that you see, negative stuff on TV, but the real Islam that we love. And that isn't by necessarily the size of your beard or the clothes that you wear. It is how you show your love, compassion, the way you behave in your adab, which is your manners, with the love that you have, muhabbat, for others. And we love humanity for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we have gone to sleep at night and we have not done something positive that day to help someone, we have wasted our day. But that's okay. Go to sleep, have a good night's sleep, wake up the next morning and try again. This is my opinion as a Muslim, as a human being, what we should be doing. And I would really encourage people to remember. Ask yourself a simple question. When was the last time that your donation made you poor? Really think hard. Think really hard. I remember one of the businessmen, he would give money in one of the cities in Pennsylvania, and he gave money $100,000 a year to the local mosque. And someone asked him, how come you give so much? You don't have that much money. There's people who have a lot more money than you. He said, you know, the first year I was worrying about the 100,000. And then I had my best year ever after I gave the 100,000. So every year I put it in my books, I'm giving 100,000. So by me giving money to the house of Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking care of my family. This was his opinion. I remember going to one place and there was a brother arguing with me after Jummah khutbah. It was an older gentleman. And he said, brother, you gave a nice khutbah, but you were wrong on point 1, 2, and 3. I listened patiently. I didn't know who he was. Then I explained to him why I wasn't wrong on point 1, 2, and 3. One by one, I went through every point. And he argued with me for about 20, 30 minutes, and I very politely answered him. Now, my friend was looking at me, Anwar, all the donors are running off. Why are you talking to this older guy? But he was asking me questions. I thought he was sincere. I didn't agree with some of the stuff he was saying, but I answered it. Then later on, he said, come back to me. This is after Jummah in Ramadan. Come back to me at iftar time. So I came back to him at the iftar time. And he said, you know, I will give you $50,000. Come back to me in the evening. So I was, that's okay. You can argue with me for 20 minutes if we're getting 50,000, mashallah, to help the needy kids. That's great. So I come back at Maghrib. He looks at me and he says, I'm not giving you 50,000 now. Because I had the intention of giving you 50,000. And then after Jummah, I was worried. How would I keep my Islamic center going and my school going? If I give you the 50,000, how is the money going to come to me to run my nonprofit? and I was really having doubts. Then these two doctors came, he's a doctor himself, and they gave 50,000 each. So I decided I'm not giving you 50,000, I'm giving you 100,000. Because when I wanted to give you 50, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me 100 for my work. Now I'm giving 100. This is really, I want people to understand that we are people of faith, that we want people to earn money, we want people to have a good livelihood, and we want them to share that with others. And then they pick which nonprofit. Why is it that we think only our for-profit should be professional? I want professional nonprofits. Yes, I'm your brother, inshallah, but you should expect me when you use the word brother that I'm also professional. That's not an excuse for me to go down in my quality. Customer satisfaction is very important in the business world. Donor satisfaction is very important in the nonprofit world. We actually have a donor bill of rights in our call center, and it's listed all of the rights that our donors have. So I would encourage my brothers and sisters in the nonprofit industry, please go and do courses. I benefited from those courses. Learn from our brothers and sisters of all faith and no faith, and come with a superior product, superior service. Work with excellence, have accountability, use your compassion. These are 3 of our 5 values. Live it, work it. This is faith by example. And I wanted to thank Ifti, the work that you've done, whether that be through contacts that we've been able to develop with the Congress, especially on the Republican side. We already had contacts on the Democratic side. You were able to help us to be more bipartisan. It was very difficult because in the Muslim community, people assume that we're just with one party or the other. The work we do in humanitarian work has to transcend all divisions. We need to be able to work in a bipartisan way. So I've worked together with you in a bipartisan way. We've also reached out to the White House. We've also reached out to different parts of the executive. And Dr. Said Muhammad Said is an inspiration to many of us for the work that he did in the interfaith community and reaching out to people. So for me, there are 3 stages in Muslim organizations after you set up. The first stage after you set up is to raise money. No money, no mission. The second stage is to do programs, really good quality. No mission, no mission. The third stage is to be a witness of what you've done. I don't want us to be so humble that we hide everything and nobody knows the wonderful work we do. Many times my friends, when I talk to them on interfaith work, what they really appreciate is when they hear the numbers and how much money we're putting in and how many people we've helped. With COVID-19, Islamic Relief USA alone this year has put forward $8 million to work in America, the bulk of that for COVID-19. $5.5 million has already been dispersed through over 140 partner organizations. We are doing what venture capitalists would do, is we find small companies and we build them up. This is what we've been doing. One of our partners, we're working with them so they can get federal money. Before, we worked with other partners to get county money, then state money, then federal money. So for us, we are a catalyst of social entrepreneurship in the Muslim community in America by working with our partners. Now, about 1/3 of our partners are African-American led, and about similar number are women led. About 10% of our partners are from, to 20% are from other faith or no faith. So we have a network that combines, that gives, that mentors, that builds capacity with these partners. And it's wonderful when you find Islamic Relief is working with white evangelicals in Kentucky. Isn't that wonderful? People say, but I didn't expect that. Why not? You should. So I would say that let's get our money. And by the way, I wanted to really encourage people, since I'm going to do a plug now. please see if you can get a grant from SBA, Small Business Administration. The federal government this year, because of COVID-19, is giving money to nonprofits and to other companies. Even if you have been rejected the first time, please consider applying again. The number of financial institutes that the SBA is working with has dramatically increased from 800 to over 5,000. And remember, if you do it in the right way, you can, instead of getting a loan, it will be forgiven as a loan and will become a grant. So we in Islamic Relief have benefited from that, of getting a grant, and we're encouraging nonprofits and we're encouraging nonprofits. Please see and do your best. Do not leave money on the table, which can help you to put food on the table of hungry people. And it is not us providing the food. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
With that, we really thank you for your time and partaking in the ISNA convention this year, particularly on this panel. Your words of wisdom will definitely be of something that is going to inspire many. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Personally return to the ceremony that created more possibilities for me than I.
Being the CEO of a tech company, in some ways, is a lot easier than what you in this room do.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Muhammad Ali, and I am CEO of International Data Group, a 3,000-person technology company headquartered in Massachusetts. Our friends at ISNA asked me to speak about my journey to the CEO position as a Muslim, as an immigrant, and as an American. All characteristics I have come to cherish. But I didn't always cherish being different. As a boy growing up in New York in the 1980s, I did not know of a Muslim CEO of a large American company, a brown or black or white Muslim member of Congress, or a prominent actor or reporter with a background similar to mine. Even though equality of opportunity was cherished, it didn't seem like it applied to everyone. Many of you know the story of Bilal, the African man who the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, chose for the exalted role of giving Islam's first call to prayer. Many of us point to Bilal as the preeminent example that Islam is a religion of equality and that racism has no role in our faith. And the Prophet made this clear when he said, all humans are descended from Adam and Eve. There is no superiority of an Arab over a non-Arab, or of a non-Arab over an Arab, and no superiority of a white person over a black person, or of a black person over a white person, except on the basis of personal piety and righteousness. Yet, many of us, Muslims and non-Muslims, live with some sort of bias. Sometimes it is expressed externally with consequences ranging from job discrimination to the brutal killings of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery. And sometimes it manifests itself internally and limits us. I didn't know of any CEOs that looked like me, and I assumed I could not be one. So I did what our parents, aunties, and uncles told many of us to do. I became an engineer. Today, we have role models such as Farouk Kathwari, CEO of Ethan Allen, Asma Khalid, a headscarf-wearing NPR reporter covering the presidential campaign, and multiple Muslim members of Congress. As Muslims emerge into leadership roles, we must lead with the Prophet's message of equality for all, echoed in our nation's 14th constitutional amendment proclaiming such equality. 3 years ago, I spoke at the John F. Kennedy Presidential Library to several hundred new citizens at the naturalization ceremony. I shared my journey and talked about the American dream. Today, I will say a little bit more about the opportunities that were available to me in the 1980s and the increasing threat they're under today, and highlight the responsibility we as Muslims and Americans have to uphold and promote not just ideals, but behaviors and policies that can make equality a reality. Nearly 40 years ago, my mom and I arrived in America at JFK Airport in New York City. We had a total of $34 in our pockets combined. The idea that I would one day be CEO of a technology company was just unfathomable. I was born in 1970 under the rule of a dictator in the country of Guyana. In that very year of my birth, Guyana established relations with North Korea and the Soviet Union, declared the country a cooperative republic, and banned imports. Our president started nationalizing industries and over that decade reduced the private sector to 1/10 of the economy. There were widespread shortages of food and fuel. The water supply stopped working where I lived and electricity was out often. My parents had both grown up poor. My mother worked in the rice fields from the age of 12 and could not afford shoes. My father came from a large family of subsistence farmers. My mother eventually became a teacher and my father a police officer. Neither earned much, but we had a home made from wood instead of clay and enough money to buy the basics until there were a few basics to buy and no running water to grow our own food. We had to walk long distances to the village well or nearby streams. My parents decided this was no life for their 3 young children. After several arduous years, we ended up in New York, scraping by economically, but together and hopeful. In 1991, when we became proud American citizens, I was a student at Stanford University pursuing a degree in engineering. How did I get from a boy who'd never seen an escalator before arriving at JFK Airport to a student at one of America's most elite universities? Part of the answer is that America offered real opportunities. I had public education, was blessed with an excellent teacher in a poorly resourced school, but with encouragement from her, I made it into Stuyvesant, an elite public exam high school. That, and good financial aid available at the time, made Stanford possible. With new skills, credentials, and contacts, I worked at IBM and Hewlett-Packard, served as CEO of Carbonite, and now CEO of International Data Group. You who have come from destitute and war-ridden backgrounds, from countries where you were persecuted for your beliefs, and have seen far worse than I have, you in particular know how special America is. You probably also know that some of the opportunities we've depended on have been narrowed. New regulations have made immigration harder, restricting asylum and slowing down and blocking visas. Just release rules make the naturalization process slower and more expensive. Exam schools like Stuyvesant, which I got into by a mere 2 points, are now largely attended by those who can afford expensive private prep classes. And the student body is far less diverse as a result. I would not have made it into Stuyvesant in today's environment. While over the last 40 years, I've seen and been part of an incredible shift in Muslim Americans coming to prominence in business, media, and politics, the current regulatory trend is towards restricting rights and opportunities. My message today is twofold. First, in America, the ideal of equality for all exists. We now have many Muslim role models who have paved the way, and more in the making. Pursue your goals and seek your dreams. Second, as you gain positions of power, you have an Islamic, American, and moral obligation to give back and enable others to have similar opportunities. As chapter 2 of the Quran says, spend out of what God has given you and give others the opportunity you were given. Today, my family and I support education in Somalia and Pakistan, gender violence prevention in El Salvador and Guatemala, and immigration and hunger reduction right here at home in the United States. As Muslims strive for power in America and achieve it, we must remember that our duties come before our rights. You, my fellow Muslims, are the vanguard of change in America. You have power, whether it's the power of the CEO position or the power of citizenship. Use it to help others, Muslims and non-Muslims. Use it in God's way. Thank you and salam.